Hi everybody, it's Sue and Sal. We're back again at the Farm Table Garden, and we're here for week one. And I think Sal is going to start us out with talking about the garden space.
Sure, yeah. So let's talk about getting your garden space ready. I think the first most important thing is look around your yard and just kind of check out what you've got to work with, where there's any big trees, where your fence, your house is. So we want to put our garden in a nice sunny location, so wherever in your yard gets the most sun is probably going to be best. You're going to want at least maybe 6 hours a day of sunlight, and if you really don't have that much sun, then we can talk about some plants that do a little bit better in a more shady location. Another thing to consider is your water source. Where are you going to be watering your garden from? Are you going to be using a hose? Are you going to be using a watering can? Just where is the water located in your house, and maybe thinking about how to most easily get it to your garden when it's time to water your plants. Another thing to think about is the spacing. So we recommended maybe a 20 by 20 bed. So just check it out, get a measuring tape out. Do you have actually 20 by 20 space that you can work with, or is it going to be a little bit different than that? We can talk maybe next week about some different bed designs. If you're going to use raised beds, there are a couple different sizes that we can talk about and different ways to do a little bit smaller space gardening, fit everything into less than 20 by 20. And another thing to think about is your soil. So we had hinted at this in our preview, but you want to look at your soil and really kind of start to get familiar with it, because your soil is what's going to be feeding your plants. So if you have really good, strong, healthy soil, you're going to have good, strong, healthy plants and really good food. So just start looking at your soil, maybe, like feel it, look at the color of it, just dig into the lawn a little bit and just check out what you've got there. We can talk a lot about soil health in the future, but that's something to just kind of start thinking about, is what does my soil look like and what might I need to work with on it. All right, if you are ready to get started converting your lawn to garden, the easiest thing that you can do, maybe not the easiest, but the simplest thing you can do is just get out a shovel, mark out your square where you want to turn it into a garden, and just start digging up the sod. It can help to just dig it up in little 1 foot by 1 foot squares, and you can put it into a compost bin. You can kind of incorporate it somewhere else in the lawn, but just start getting that up and then getting the soil underneath exposed. And then once that soil's exposed, you can start loosening it with a shovel. If you've got a rototiller or any sort of machinery that can kind of move around the soil, you can get it a little bit worked up, so you're going to be able to work in it more easily and kind of break up some of the perennial weed roots that are under the grass layer. Otherwise, there's a couple other options that are a little bit more technical, but we can provide some resources on that. You can lay down that tarp, and it's going to take a couple weeks to really kill all the grass, but you can lay down a tarp where you want to put your garden bed and just make sure to weight down the corners so it doesn't blow away, and then just leave that so it's fully covering the grass, and you can keep checking under it. And when the grass looks pretty dead, then it's going to be a lot easier to maybe get it out with a shovel, or just go in with a rototiller or some other sort of hand tool to just break it all up. There's another technique you can do, which is called sheet mulching, and that's just where you're layering cardboard, compost, just any sort of decaying organic matter, and just getting a really thick layer on top of your sod. And that is something that, if it is tall enough, you can plant directly into that, or you can use that to really help kind of get rid of the grass and just start incorporating and building up your soil garden space. If you are not digging up your lawn to create your garden, if you are just building raised beds, the easiest thing is to just put those directly down on top of the lawn. Something you can do is put down some cardboard as sort of a natural layer that's going to start smothering that grass, and that is going to just decay naturally, go back into the soil. So it's a little bit more eco-friendly than putting down any sort of a plastic or landscape fabric. Plus, you won't have to worry about that if you're ever going to move your bed. So those are a little bit easier. You just plop them down where you want them, and you are ready to fill them with soil and get growing.
So now we're just going to talk a little bit about some of our favorite tools that we like to use. you may have some tools around, you may need to go get some, and Sal and I just brought a few things that we kind of find indispensable. So one of my favorites is a soil fork. And a soil fork is different from a hay fork or something like that in that the tines are flat and they're wider, they're not rounded. And I just find it really, really helpful for loosening soil up, and especially if there's any kind of perennial weed problem where you've got a lot of weed roots in the soil. Just loosening up the soil and it makes it real easy to get rid of any perennial weed roots that you might have. I use mine a lot. And then my other favorite tool is a stirrup hoe. It's called a stirrup hoe because this looks sort of like a stirrup, and it's you just use it to do cultivation in between your rows, in between your plants. And for me, it's my very favorite garden tool, I think.
All right. Some of the tools that I brought a more of a standard kind of garden hoe, so you might be a little bit more familiar with this. I have to agree the stirrup hoe is really nice. It's a little bit easier to work with, but the garden hoe is going to be something that you might already have or know somebody who's got it. And this again is just for getting in and just kind of cultivating, breaking up the weeds around your plants, and just trying to keep it so that you can weed from a standing up position, which might be a little easier on the back, so you're not just down there hand weeding everything. I've also brought a rake, and this is like a hard tine rake, which is different than your typical leaf rake. This I really like because you can kind of rake soil up and make yourself little shallow trenches if you're going to be planting seeds. Otherwise, you can just smooth the soil. You can, I guess, rake weeds. If you have a bunch of weeds laying around, you can kind of rake them up and just get them in one spot before you move them. I just find this is a pretty versatile tool and just something that I really like having around. I did also bring gloves. Gloves are really nice because they can prevent you from getting any blisters. They can protect your fingers from any sort of pointy weeds, and I really like these super tight gloves a lot. The final tool that I brought it's called a hori hori. It is a Japanese version of a trowel. So you might be familiar with a trowel. It's just a small hand tool, like a little hand shovel essentially for digging up. You can use it to weed, to dig up weeds, to dig holes when you're transplanting plants. So your trowel is going to be a really essential hand tool for getting in there and for just working with, lots of small things. The hori hori, I really like it because it has a few additional features. So it's a little bit sturdier. When you buy trowels or other hand tools, you can look and see if the blade goes all the way up in the handle. That's going to make sure that it is a really strong tool. Otherwise, if it kind of ends here and there's a plastic or wood handle, a lot of times with the cheaper tools, they're just going to bend right here. When you dig into the ground, if you try to dig anything really hard up, it is going to be really weak right here. So it's good to make sure you have high quality tools so you're not frustrated later. But the hori hori also has this serrated edge, which is super nice for cutting through really thick weed roots, or for cutting twine in the field, or just any sort of random task like that. It's also got a little divot here for, you can cut a little bit bigger if you need to do some tree pruning or whatever. This is kind of my one tool that works for everything. So this is definitely my most prized tool that I've got. And
it's like the Swiss Army knife of trowels.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so other than that, a shovel. We didn't bring one.
Yeah, a shovel is going to be indispensable. Mm-hmm. And you know what else is really handy? You can get by if you don't have one, but a wheelbarrow is pretty handy. So just your standard spade type shovel with the pointy end and a wheelbarrow, you'll get some use out of those tools as well.
Yeah, and I think just having a few basic hand tools, there's a lot of specialty tools out there. So you can look into that, or there's a lot of ergonomically designed tools if you have some issues with arthritis or some back or knee issues. There's a lot of different types of tools that you can get that are going to be a little bit easier to use. So if you're looking for that, we can also provide some resources. So just make sure you have a few hand tools, a few good shovels, rakes, those kind of things, and you're going to be well equipped for your garden adventure.
Yeah, and Sal, seeing as you mentioned the ergonomic thing, we might talk about this later, but just in case, we're here now. When you're using, especially, it's why I really like the stirrup hoe, is because you can use this tool while you're standing straight up. You don't have to bend over. And if you find yourself bending over, then you're not using it properly. So this tool is really designed for you to use it while you're standing straight up and down, and so it's much, much easier on your back.
So I think that about wraps it up for our very first Victory Garden video segment. Next week we are going to be talking more about your actual garden design, how you can set up your beds, maybe some different plans that you can follow. We're going to be talking about a few other things that you might want to consider purchasing or creating yourself. So maybe fencing or mulch or trellis systems or just anything else that's going to help your plants grow really well. Also, we're going to talk a little bit more about soil amendments like amazing compost, which is always good, and anything else that you might want to add to your soil to keep it super healthy. Anything else?
I don't think so. Thanks for coming, and don't forget to tune in every Thursday night at 6 o'clock, and we'll be, answering your questions, and so make sure that you add in the comments if you have questions for us, and if we don't get to them on Thursday nights, we will be looking at them during the week. So,
yeah, great. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you.